everyone. Welcome to Stepping into Your Leadership. I'm your host, Christine Courtney, and really excited today to have a good friend in the studio and a powerhouse of a woman. So her name is Toni Clayton-Hine. And let me tell you a little bit about my friend Toni here. So Toni is the Chief Marketing Officer for EY Americas, the 25 billion professional services firm, also known as Ernst & Young. She leads the firm's integrated marketing strategy across industries, so geography, service lines. She's driving revenue, relationships, and reputation. I love those R's. That's a good one. You can tell you're in marketing. A seasoned global B2B marketing executive, Toni blends creative thinking with data and analytics to unlock growth in highly competitive markets. Her career spans media sales, entrepreneurship as a consultant, and research co-founder, and senior marketing roles, including serving as the CMO for ArcServe, formerly part of CA Technologies, and global CMO at Xerox prior to joining EY in 2019. Toni also serves on the boards of the Global Technology Industry Association, the Association for Executive Search Professionals, and the New York chapter of the Association of National Advertisers. But this may be even the most interesting. She is the daughter of an expat. And so Toni grew up overseas in Europe and the Middle East before returning to the United States to attend Babson College. And she lives here in New York with her husband and two daughters. And I am thrilled to call her a friend. She is also one of the kindest people. When you walk into a room, if Toni is there, she is smiling. And she is definitely offering you a kind welcome and a way to meet other people. And I have really found her to be a go-to person for a really fun time and a deep conversation. So, Toni, welcome.
Wow, my goodness. Okay, we're done now. I'm out of
We're
here.
done. Time's up.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a kind thing to say. Thank you.
Well,
And I will count you under one of my many friend blessings as well. So I'm so excited to be here, and I listen to your podcast. And so being on the podcast is such an honor. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, here we go. I want to jump right in because it's really cool to see. I've been with Toni at some industry events as well, and she has a lot of people coming up to pick her brain or to find out what's more from her. And so we're lucky to have her. And so I want to jump right in to that. I kind of alluded to it a little bit in your bio, but I see it in who you are as a person as well. And so I can imagine it in the workplace. This way that you seem to be able to balance the creative needs that somebody in marketing has to have, but also with like the strategy and all the data and analytics that somebody who's a CMO must, use in your work. So I know a lot of people are trying to figure out along their career journeys how to do those two things at once. So how do you do it? Give us some
Well,
insights.
I can only tell you what works for me, and it might work for others, which is the fact that I really love to look at a creative idea and a creative way to solve a problem. So I think it starts with the fact that I'm not really good at taking no for an answer. So I just think about, okay, if I wanted to get from here to there, what would be the way that I could do that? And if there are a bunch of barriers or blockers in the way, what is a different way to get to that objective? Or is this not the right way to think about the end state? And do we need to modify what good looks like in order to do that? So the creative part of marketing probably starts for me with the creative part of problem solving, and then sort of applying that to the different types of goals and initiatives that we may have. And then because I think I grew up in sales, kind of marrying that with being creative but not delivering an outcome is really just an idea. And so that's really a lot relying on the analytics and relying on the data and the insights to be able to figure out if what you are proposing or what you want to formulate or what you want to deliver is actually achieving the result or delivering the outcome that you're looking for.
And do you find that you're the one in the room at the point that you're in now? Are others bringing in their ideas to you? And then you're going through that kind of process with them? Or do you have it more as like team brainstormings? And then like, how does that look like in your role there?
So I would say that personally, I'm a very iterative thinker and think out loud. So I really enjoy the process of saying, here's an idea or an objective. Let's pull a couple of people in. Let's start to think through what good could look like or what we're trying to achieve and how we could do that. And then one of the things is really culturally connected to the work I do today at EY, but even previous to that, which is, you know, as you take an idea and shape it, the voices that you bring in that you trust really can help provide a better outcome. So I don't really tend to get too emotionally connected to a particular way that something needs to get done. I usually get connected to the idea that we're trying to drive or the result we're trying to deliver, and then think through, all right, this is one way. How would that iterate, shape, change, modify? And so that when we end up with the final idea or product, or solution, that it usually has a lot of different voices in that. So that works for me, and also probably can make some of my team totally crazy because they love being involved in the process, but then it gets continually morphed. And so they're like, just make a decision. And I'm like, I will make a decision once we figure out we've got the right solution that really seems to satisfy that. So it could take a little longer.
Yes. I find that too. It's so funny that need, because they have to execute it, right? They have to execute it. So that decision
Exactly.
becomes an important point for them to, get rid of some of their anxiety and get started.
Okay. I don't think about the fact that I probably deliver a lot of anxiety, but I think that's probably very fair. True statement.
Well, you're welcome. So, when as part of that brainstorming process, I'm curious, do you see things that people come in, like earlier stage career folks, and maybe it was you or maybe it's other folks that come in? There's certain things that they overlook or mistakes that people make along the way that you're like, girl, guy, try not doing that, or that's what are some lessons that people can learn from, because it's very rare that they get to talk to somebody like you directly when they're on their growth of like learning. What do you
Yeah.
see?
Well, I think that I see something that I've heard you talk about in several of your podcasts, which is this idea around curiosity and that idea that you want to learn, you want to understand, you want to lean in. So, versus what you shouldn't do, I think is really come in with that approach of what can I learn? And then what can I contribute to this? I think where people can get stuck is one, if they get too, I'll call it emotionally connected to what they're trying to deliver, and they forget about the larger scope of all of the different things that have to go right or be impacted or will be impacted by the idea. So people can get discouraged if they feel like you said this was a good idea, but it didn't end up coming out this way, or it got put on the cutting room floor and you think you're right, but you have to think about how the whole process comes together and what that larger picture will be. So sometimes they miss that understanding of you're just one piece of the overall picture. And what does that mean?
Oh, it's such a learning lesson, isn't it? I mean, how we hold on to our great ideas as if they're our babies, and
And well, in marketing especially, right? Because it is tends to be a very creative process, and just watching that morph and grow can feel very far from what your original idea was, and people want to hang on to that. I actually thought where you were going to go is what do people, the younger or more entry level people or newer to the job market bring? And in my job, it's fantastic, right?
yeah.
Because we're constantly looking at new mediums, new ways to communicate, what's really interesting. And if you watch your kids, you will certainly know where things are going, what's going to hit, what's not. I think about anybody could see how popular TikTok is going to be as a medium, as a channel, then just watch your kids and how much time they spend. How many times did I have back in the day meeting upon meeting about the infamous metaverse and how that was going to be world changing, but the kids never jumped on. Yes, there was roadblocks in some of those experiences, but that's also where you think this isn't as be careful because there's not as many kids doing this now. So what do we think that's going to happen? And even right now with AI, I'm
Yes.
constantly asking kids or new or younger folks in the organization, do you use it? What do you think? And that really makes a difference in terms of how not just us leading them, but them leading us in terms of providing a sense of direction.
Yeah. Such a good note for all of us, right? To look at, no matter how, if you're a young person in the workforce, same thing. Like, what are your peers doing? What are your middle school aged siblings doing? Whatever it is, because that's eventually going to push up, right? Before it was TikTok, it was Musically. And
Yep,
we both have daughters the same age, but they were on Musically like crazy, when it was just singing songs and stuff. And so,
exactly. What a
that's
difference, right?
what a
Yeah,
difference.
yeah,
And it's still super popular, right? I mean, more so.
exactly.
So what about AI? Because everybody's talking about the way that they're imagining it apocalyptically affecting marketing and legal and finance and certain fields. Do you see any fear rippling through your folks or with?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we have had so many conversations just by need and want and desire. And I'm probably more the person that says that has that belief that AI is not going to take your job. The people who know AI are going to take your job, that kind of adage. So I feel like it's a huge responsibility on me to make sure that my team is as up to date and proficient and open and using AI as much as possible so that we can be ahead of the curve wherever possible. So, whether that's what tools do we have that could make us more efficient and productive, whether that's how do we use it as a thought partner and a creative partner, whether that's how do we figure out what is the best version of the story to tell. So, I don't really come to this with a fear of it. I really am very, very excited about it. The people that have fear, it's our responsibility as leaders to help say jump in with both feet because it's here whether you like it or not. And there's some great things to learn.
You just thought of something that you reminded me of. It seems a little bit off track, but I'm going to jump in there with it anyway. And that is that sometimes I know in your work you do some outward facing stuff, and sometimes it's inward facing, kind of almost internal marketing for the employees and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remembered when you were talking about the one thing you did. I don't remember how long ago it was, but you focused in on I think some of the partners at EY and their journeys to get there a little bit. And it was beautiful. I feel like they were even black and white. They were really kind of, almost like documentaries a little bit, mini documentaries on these
Yeah.
people. And I was just curious, like, where that came from, like, what was the need and what was the thought process behind it. Because honestly, one of the people that I know was featured in it, and it was so wonderful seeing it, from his wife and so forth, sharing those things with me, because I learned things about him that I hadn't known, and I don't think I'm the
Yeah.
audience for it, but I thought, wow, what a powerful thing to do internally. And so I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I mean, we do it for both actually, which is, coming to EY a few years ago, I was really struck by a lot of the marketing communication that we did was very kind of factual, cerebral, insight driven, and most of the focus was on the outcome that we delivered. But what was lost was the reason that the outcome and the advice and the guidance was credible. And it was really the expertise of the people. And I had never worked in professional services before. So I walk in and I'm like, these are the smartest people on the planet.
Right.
And they are, because of the work that they do is to take complex issues and make them understandable and bring that clarity to the complexity. They're really good at articulating that. And I'm like, why don't we show these people? How don't we just share what they do and where they come from and how they think? And it just allowed us to really, I think, contextualize all the expertise that we were delivering with all the things that built up to that, and then really hopefully gives people an understanding that the advice that we're giving and the way that we're talking about that comes from the culmination of experiences that they have, and we should celebrate that. UI as a culture is a very collaborative, very human first kind of culture. And so I just thought, what a shame if we don't share this, because and I'm so impressed. But I think because I was from the outside versus the inside, maybe when you're in the inside, you're used to it. But
It's
it was
such a
fun.
good point, right? To get that like fresh perspective. So you guys actually use those for outside too, then?
Yeah, we do it with both our internal people, we do it with our experts, and we do it with our clients where we run different programs. Again, showing the journey and the story that they've been on, which is amazingly fascinating.
And they probably love doing it, right? Like it's a win-win-win all the way around.
I mean, hopefully they feel like that. I just feel like if we showcase the story, it's good for all of us, right? I don't need it to be like, this is what EY has done for me. If it will come out naturally, which it often does, fantastic. But if not, we get to talk about all the things that shaped this particular CEO or CFO or whoever we seem to be showcasing.
Yeah, and also it kind of tapped into like a little bit more to your point of an emotional chord than you would expect from a
Yeah.
company like EY,
Yeah.
right? And I think it does give you a sense of almost intimate, like it was like, that black and white solo camera on the person sitting on a stool or something, kind of stripped down of all the wild tech that it could be, kind
Hmm.
of let you know them in a way that to me surprised me about a big, $25 billion consulting firm would put out there. And so I just think that was very clever of you. And I think important for as far as a differentiator, when it sells. So that's cool.
It must, because now that I think we struck a chord when we've done it because a lot of people have sort of followed that medium as well. So, it really can helps you see that more and more large firms want to have a human element that, AI now more than ever before.
Yeah. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly. So with that, because we talk a lot about, as you know, leadership on this podcast and for people coming up into it and stuff. And what's something that, on your journey up that you kind of maybe struggled with in terms of leading teams or leading folks?
Yeah, I think that probably the aspect, they have that aspect of what got you here won't get you there, right? In terms of, when you start off in your career, and as we were talking about earlier, you lean in and you volunteer for everything and you want to learn as much as possible and figure out how you could contribute. And then as you start to manage people, wanting to manage them in the best possible way you can and always have their back and always be there for them. And it just, you start to, for me anyway, was figuring out more people you manage and more places that you would go in the organization, that you would need to make sure that when you push, when you pull back, when is it worth it to, kind of turn in your chits in terms of your political capital. When is it not worth it? How do you help people understand that you're one piece of the broader decisions being made? So for me, that element of, how do all these things work, and what's the contribution or detraction that you would have or your team has in that? Simple things like really wanting to push on a project when business is softer down, or really wanting to have somebody promoted when there's 16 other potential promotions around you, and there may be reasons that are bigger or better than yours. And so just understanding that contextualization of the business and the environment was probably the biggest thing that I had to learn
Yeah. And God, that's ongoing, isn't it? Wait,
every
just when you're
day.
saying that, I'm like, oh my God, I still feel like I'm learning that. But that is an interesting one, because while other things right now in our lives, just because of age and experience, have gotten easier, some stuff still remains a challenge. Thank goodness we're still learning.
Every day.
I'm curious, in your job, I'm sure you deal with a lot of conflicts, a lot of strong personalities, a lot of competing priorities. And even at home, I see, like you are it seemingly eternally positive and focused on like problem solving, but pretty upbeat, And I remember being surprised at how much you held on your shoulders in terms of responsibility. And I don't know, any secrets that you can let people in on?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I try not to take myself too seriously, right? I mean, listen, we're all just trying to do the best we can at any given time, So some days you do better than others, and I just try to think through At the end of the day, week, month, I think, did I do the best that I can? Yes. Did I am lucky enough not to have to be curing cancer? I mean, the things that we do are important, but, when it's in the grand scheme of all the other things that are happening in the world, we should always just remember we're one small piece of that. And that also, I just like to have fun. So I generally just think, like, how do we have the most fun in this situation, and try to kind of keep that perspective a little bit.
I know that well, you might kill me for this, but I know that you, like myself, came from theater, growing up in your adolescence, right? And from the arts. And it's so funny because, you have athletes. Well, you have one kid who's super athletic, and you have somebody who's pretty artsy too.
This
But
is true.
that's lucky. But anyway, what was it for you? Like, what do you think how was that in your formative experience, that part of theater or that part of performing, or how did that impact you think?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it started really, I think, just wanting to find a way to have a creative outlet. And then also feeling like certainly it helps you with things like public speaking and, understanding how to read a room and how to take energy from an audience. And then how does that become energy for everybody? So I've always liked that part of it. I always like the storytelling part of it, right? Like, you get to create a wonderful world, and you get to be able to bring that world to a lot of people. So I always liked that part of it. I think that there's just that familial energy with a cast and crew, right? That gives you an additional extended family and friends that you have such a nice shared experience with.
Yeah. Yeah, and do you see it playing a part in your work now? Like, do you feel parts of it?
I think that when you have to think through, it's almost like improv, right? Where you're constantly sort of, where they say those rules of improv where you always say yes, right? You say yes, and you sort of train yourself to think, okay, how do I take this and turn this into something that I can use, or something that could be positive, or something that could be useful to keep the conversation, the story going. I feel a lot of that has helped me just conceptually to say, when, especially in my role, right? Again, I get to work with a lot of really smart people who are paid every day to have an opinion. And so there's no situation where I say, what do you think? And they don't feel some responsibility to provide an opinion. And so at first
Good
I
way
was
to
like,
put that, by the way.
I'm like, but at first I was like, why can't you just say, great, go? And then I realized, oh, because their whole like ethos is around sort of iterating, making things better, and what could they provide. So a lot of it is that yes and. So, okay, so thank you. And then thinking through, all right, what did you just say? What could be useful here? What do I want to say? Thank you, I'm going to put that back. Or thank you, I'm going to take pieces of it and run forward. So a lot of that feels like it comes from a theater background, and also keeping a straight face when someone tells you the craziest thing that you've ever heard. And I'm not very good at that at all, because I really am I show you exactly what
Expressive.
I'm thinking. Oh my goodness. So I just try to nod and go, mm-hmm. Okay, now I have to think about what are you actually saying, and then how can I like incorporate that if it makes sense. So it's kind of fun that way too.
Right. Um, are there any, you have your hands in so many things at EY, but are there any special programs or passion projects that you happen to love, or, that this is, if you could spend, all your time working on this, you would just love it. Is there anything like that that you work on?
Well, I think one personally for me, we are really deeply indebted to entrepreneurs, and it's a really big program for us. So we run several entrepreneurship programs: Entrepreneur of the Year, Entrepreneur Winning Women, Entrepreneur Access Network, all of these which look at fostering what does it mean to help build, grow, scale a business. And whether that's for Entrepreneur of the Year, which is, the recipients are everybody from Michael Dell to Jeff Bezos to Google to Starbucks to, I mean, it's the largest companies that started off in the smallest areas. So it's quite amazing that we find them when they're in their infancy and then can help foster those companies to grow, which is like, what a special opportunity, right? And then we also do that with various cohorts of people. So with women, we have a program and a network that allows that to foster more of a community environment. Same with Black or Latinx or underserved communities where they're emerging companies that need a bit more of a infrastructure, capital, connection. And so it's one of the reasons that I went to EY, because I just love that about our brand. And one of the things that I personally love working on, just because it feels like what a great way to give back in a meaningful way to hope that they will succeed. And it's just fun to be able to make those connections and see how this might lead. And these are the people that are, in fact, curing cancer. I mean, when you talk about what they do, I mean, there's people that are really fundamentally impacting and changing the world. And I mean, if you could play one small part in supporting that, like, what an honor, right? That's incredible.
Yeah, when I went with you to that one evening event that you invited me to, I was just so inspired by so many of those companies. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Change the world.
Changed the world.
Yeah.
And they also had really, you could tell, crafted their stories, and they're up there presenting, and they're working, they were really, you could tell, given a lot of resources in their process. You could see that they were so much further ahead than so many other people who were just starting off. It was
But
really
also,
beautiful.
this is where the value that you deliver to the market is so important as an entrepreneur yourself, right? I mean, when you see that so many entrepreneurs, they're so focused on the product or service or the asset that they're trying to bring to the world that, they learn how to, launch a company, but then growing and scaling and building out all those people. So, when you offer something like a leadership development, it is what got you here won't get you there. It is exactly of, I've seen this all the time when people want to, IPO or go public. And I think, okay, now how are you going to act when you have to be the adult in the room, right? When you are accountable to a much larger entity than yourself. And so that's where things like that you offer in terms of leadership development become so critical.
Yeah. And also why even just doing this podcast is important to me, because I'm getting to sit down. I mean, you and I have been friends for a while, but we don't sit around and talk about this stuff. Do you know what I mean?
No.
We talk about we have much more fun. No, but we can. And it is also interesting to just have this half an hour just to pick your brain on some of this stuff and kind of understand a new part of you, and also how I can learn from it. And hopefully those of you listening can. So I just wanted to end our time with maybe just some tips for people on how they can use maybe some tips from marketing in their everyday life or in their career, climb up that corporate ladder, or they're one of hundreds within an organization. How do they borrow some of these ideas to further their career? Any tips you got?
Yeah. Well, I think, if I just look at what is marketing, right? Marketing is packaging and presenting and delivering value to the world, right? Whether that's to your community, whether that's to the business that you're in or the company, or whether that's to your customers or clients. And so if you think about when you show up in today's world, especially with social media everywhere and so many tools available to you, it's not if and when, it's really also how you show up. And that doesn't need to be super polished if that's not the environment you're in, but it does need to be whatever is appropriate for where you are and where you want to go, who you're talking to, and who you want to connect with or drive to your next level or next opportunity. So I just would say, in today's world more than ever, that element of how you show up becomes important. And the good news is there's so many tools to do that, whether it's something like your podcast to be a leader, or whether it's tools like Canva, how you show up on social media, or whether it's,
Right.
being able to figure out how to make a website with AI in 5 seconds or less. Like, there are so many different ways that you can think about how is the world going to interact and engage with you, or the world, the environment, the situation. I think it's worth it to take those few minutes to think that through. in terms of what you want to convey before you go out and just wing it.
Yeah, it's such a good note. I had a guy share with me the other day that his son came up to him, and he's probably like 26, so he's at working, in a pretty big company, and but not as big as EY, but a good sized company. And he said that he got a note, as well as a lot of his friends did, that said, that we're going to have a conversation about performance on this day or whatever. And so he was sitting out on the porch, and he said to his dad, "Can I talk to you about something?" And us, I mean, gosh, we treasure those moments if our kids ask us anything, right? And his dad was like, "Sure." And they sat out there, and he said, this is out in Long Island, and he said, "I'm nervous. I got this note. What does this mean?" Because you can imagine, for us, we know what it means. They don't know what this means, right? What does this mean? Am I in trouble? Like, is my
Right.
performance in trouble or whatever? And he said, the dad said, "Well, what do have you gotten any, did other people get this note?" He said, "Yeah, a lot of people got this note, and somebody asked, does this mean that we're, in trouble?" And the response was, "Well, we're all kind of under the gun because the company's not doing so well, and we all need to look at our performance." That was the response.
Mm.
So he goes, what am I walking into, in this meeting?" And the dad said, "Well, what's in your job? Do you ever like look around and like go, how else can I contribute? What else can I do? What's out there that might be able to help this company in some bigger way than just the role just the thing you're doing?" And the kid looked at him and was like, "Whoa, no, like I've never thought about that." And I was like, "Oh, bless him." Like I do think there is a moment in everybody's life where you think that a job is that you get it and you're supposed to do what they tell you. And
Hmm.
then there's this epiphany that you have one way or another of like, "Oh no, I'm not stuck doing just this." Like if
Right.
my brain can take me other places, that is wanted,
Yeah.
not something that is like,
Totally.
"Oh, I'm stepping on toes." And so he went in and did exactly what you just said. Got on AI, started figuring out this new way for the company to do this. So he went into that meeting and said, I changed the conversation. I have this idea of some way that we could do this and this and this. And we need those young brains
Yep.
because they have better ideas sometimes on things, and new ways. And the company was so excited. He got like employee of the month for like 4 months in a row, and new responsibilities, new things. And I thought, okay, we got to help our young people, because we take that for granted, that initiative is something that they understand what that exactly means.
Right. Right. It's so true. And everybody's built differently, and they need to ingest that information and be able to turn that into something however they hear that. So I say
Yeah.
this because my kids are so totally different, and they take information in and repackage it in their own way very differently. And so I think it's fantastic for, that even happened. And you know what? Good on that kid for asking his dad what to do. Right. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, because
So
you know that part of it was that his brain was scared, one, and two, open to hearing it. Because how
yes.
many times as parents are we trying to shove, or leaders trying to shove ideas into people's brains that are not ready to hear it? So I thought that was a really cool moment, and reminded me of what you're saying in terms of like looking around, going, what can
Yeah.
I contribute here?
Yeah.
Toni, thank you so much for coming on. It was so great to talk with you. It went by so fast, didn't it?
It totally went by so fast. Yes. So, I always love talking with you, and I love that you do this, and I love that, you share this ideas and so many great guests with the world. So again, thank you for having me on.
Sure. We'll have to have you come back with some of your entrepreneurial women, and that would be great to have them get an opportunity to hear some of their stories and what they're
Oh,
doing. That would be
they would
great.
love it. They would love it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Toni.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for spending time here on Stepping Into Your Leadership. I'd like to give a special shout out to our podcast producer, Richard Francisco. Check out our notes for any details. And if you want to get anything more out of this, go to our YouTube channel and please subscribe to Leadership Lab TV. If you heard something today, of course, that resonated with you, do something with it. It's all about the choices that you make. It's what you say in conversations, how you show up in a moment. Share this episode with someone who's maybe starting a new job or stepping into a new level of leadership, and try one idea, because it just might create some pretty powerful leadership ripple effects. Until next time, keep stepping in, because the room changes when you do.